Hey guys, welcome back. So with this one, we're continuing our talks on the Blood Hunt event by picking up with Avengers issue 14 as well as Blood Hunters issue 1. Because reading through this, these two issues just felt like one video. So here we are. But if you find that you're enjoying these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so starting out with Avengers issue 14. For this one, we pick up with Captain America, who's been given the task by Carol Danvers to put out the call for more Avengers. And he's doing this by way of the Avengers Identicard, which is something that's been around forever, and it's pretty much a state-of-the-art ID card that sometimes you'll see the Avengers even hand out to other heroes so they can later call them into action at a later date. Now, I want to say the last time we talked about these was during our talks on the death of Doctor Strange, like the death before his last death, but these cards have been around in Marvel Comics in some capacity for well over 40 years. But with sending this call out, this is Steve Rogers' Captain America, attempting to bring together who he can after the other members of the Avengers had fallen in Blood Hunt issue 1. And with how this is done, at first we start out with Captain America fighting by himself as the other Avengers step in to join him one by one. And as they do, we're given a bit of a monologue from each person, starting out with Steve Rogers saying how he's a soldier first, and why he became a soldier, which was to protect others, and how right now they're at war, so he's gonna need an army. And the first person we see join him is Hercules, where in his case, Hercules has seen the end of the world a number of times, and for a lot of those world-ending events, he stepped up somewhere to fight against it. So the way he sees it, if this is the end, if this is actually it, then he'll face the final darkness as an Avenger. Just after him, Kate Bishop arrives. And for her, she's going through a sequence of thoughts that kind of leads to a dark place at the end. Because at first she's like, they say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But arrows don't shoot in a straight line. They have an arc, ups and downs. Straight lines are easy, point and shoot. But an arc is complicated, alive, unpredictable. And now more than ever, I'm reminded of the biggest point of comparison. An arrow arc ends, and so does a life. And we're hearing that, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna need you to think of some happy thoughts. But following Kate, the next person we see is Quicksilver, where in his case, there's plenty on his mind, mostly family drama, but at the top of his mind is the person who he believes loves him the most, and that's his sister, the Scarlet Witch, where in her case, like we saw in Blood Hunt issue 1, she was taken with all the other Avengers who fell as well. So by joining this fight, Pietro sees it like he's joining his other family. But even still, his top priority is getting Wanda back. And the last person we see here joining Steve Rogers' Captain America is Hazmat, where in her case, now that she has more control over the radiation that she generates, we also find out that she's figured out how to imitate UV radiation to take out a bunch of these vampires with artificial sunlight. But aside from these Avengers who've made their way here to join Cap, in Blood Hunters issue 1, we're given a brief look at what some of the other heroes are doing in the meantime. Because for starters, you got Hawkeye, who's wanted for assassinating a UN ambassador, so to lay low and have a disguise, he just grew a mustache. But that didn't work out too well, because the authorities, they still recognized him. And instead of him getting taken into custody, sun death happened. So just like everyone else, he's out here fighting vampires. So throughout the first issue of Blood Hunters, he's just saving whoever he can, using wooden arrows and getting civilians up to the rooftop, where in their case, they eventually start helping him out. Because at one point, he has a priest up there who blesses an entire water tower just before Clint shoots it down, spilling holy water on all the vampires below, which was pretty clever. And aside from this, we also get a moment where John Jonah Jameson III, Man-Wolf, steps in, saving his father, John Jonah Jameson II. And it's a really touching story how it's done. And I mean, of course, there's some vampire heads that get bitten off, a stake through the heart here and there, but at the end of the day, it's all about family. And J. Jonah Jameson telling Spider-Man he doesn't need him anymore. But also in Blood Hunters issue 1, we check in with Dagger for a moment, where in her case, she's still coping with the idea of doing this all on her own, since Cloak was one of the many Dark Force users who was put out of commission when this all started. So in her case, for a moment, there's a bit of an adjustment for her as far as fighting alone, though she's able to quickly figure it out. But at one point, she finds herself conflicted when she comes across a vampire who was once a barista that her and Tyrone used to see regularly. Because she knows this guy and she doesn't want to just kill him. And this is something I often think about with any vampire or zombie story. Because it's usually some hero or heroic figure who's just cutting through all these people like it's nothing. And I get it, most of the time there's usually the argument that these people are already gone or already lost, but that's not always the case in each story. So I can see where Dagger was coming from with her trying not to kill this guy. But at the same time, when she tries to reason with him and tell him things like, well, we can help each other out, in hopes of him giving her information that'll help her get Cloak back, but at the same time, there's no sign of reason in this guy. So someone else steps in, shooting a stake in his arm, which doesn't stop him right away, forcing Dagger to put one of her psionic light daggers in his heart. And we find out right away the person who stepped in just happens to be Elsa Bloodstone, where in her case, she has no problem with killing vampires. So she really doesn't understand what's going on with Dagger right now. But that in itself was pretty much everything from Blood Hunters issue 1. And going back to Avengers issue 14, not long after Captain America and the other heroes take out a ton of vampires, they make sure some of the nearby civilians are okay, as Cap gives one of his motivational, Steve Rogers Captain America speeches. But at this time, Quicksilver, he believes going after his sister and the others should be the priority right now. So Cap lets him know that it is, but the Avengers have been hit hard, and they've got to regroup to hit back. And in the meantime, before that happens, people still need saving. So what they're doing here is playing their part, because as it stands after that surprise attack, they've been put in a position where now the Avengers need the Avengers, in addition to the civilians who already needed them in the first place. But as it stands, Cap isn't fully aware of what's going on. All he really knows is that the vampires they've come across so far have been moving around like terror troops, unorganized and just causing chaos and fear. But at the same time, they've been rounding up people like cattle and driving them in herds, which means that there's some level of organization behind the chaos. So with hearing this, it just has Hercules like, yes, but to what end? Almost like he's asking, why would vampires round up people like cattle? To where then Hazmat's just like, I don't know, maybe for their blood? So Cap just tells Hercules, that's what we're gonna find out. Though, yeah, it probably does have something to do with blood. So following this, they head out to more or less survey the area, with Cap taking a group to the skies and Quicksilver on the ground. But before you know it, they're all attacked by Nazi vampires. And it was right here where I said to myself, this got tie-in written all over it. Because as soon as I saw the cover of this issue, I was like, these Nazi vampires, they're gonna run the clock for a little bit. But what's pretty cool here is we get a moment where Captain America throws his shield, and it goes off course, like nearly smacking Quicksilver. So for a moment here, Quicksilver's like, man, that shield ain't flying right. So Cap tells him it's not his usual one, but it's one he had made after he was turned into a werewolf. Which at this point now there's numerous references, but initially this is something we were shown in the early 90s, back in Captain America issue 405, during a 6-part event called Man and Wolf. So it's pretty cool to see the reference just kind of thrown in here. But around this time with Cap mentioning this, it's here where we see a distracted Quicksilver get clotheslined by a Nazi vampire. But just before he's taken out for the count, Captain America figures out how to throw that shield properly. So he's able to get this vampire off of him before Pietro gets bitten. So following this, Hazmat and Kate, they wipe out the rest of the vampires in this group, which gives them another moment where it seems like everything's gonna be okay for a little while, so they can take a breather and get some of these civilians to safety. But before they can even get to doing that, these guys get picked up by a vortex beam, coming from a helicarrier that's ran by more vampire Nazis. So for a moment here, it just has Kate like, where the hell did a helicarrier come from? And it's not just picking up the Avengers, it's picking up the civilians too. Really just anyone who's relatively nearby. So Cap makes sure to get the other heroes to form a perimeter around the civilians, to where next they hear a voice saying, well, I suppose I should have expected you, Captain America. Every time I or someone like me has tried to deliver this particular baby into the world, you have been there to kill it in its crib. But this time, Captain America, noble fascism will be birthed in America. And it will be me who welcomes it into the world. You see, it's in my blood, as we're shown the leader of this group to be Baron Blood, cause who else gonna lead a group of vampire Nazis? And throughout this event, aside from what we saw with Blade being behind this, it also seems like a bunch of these vampires are just making their dreams come true. In the Spider-Man tie-ins, you got vampires starting a business. In the Avengers tie-in, you got Baron Blood bringing a whole bunch of vampire Nazis. And though it may not be the case, it just feels like a lot of these guys have been waiting on perpetual darkness to get their business off the ground. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.